Oh my God, it's time for No Man's Land again. Matt, popcorn intro to you, because that's what we do now.
Is it? Hi, welcome
Yep.
back to the No Man's Land. This is the podcast presented by the students of S.H.I.E.L.D. in which we discuss Batman No Man's Land. I'm Matt.
Okay. I'm Mike.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Vincent. And we have two issues today. We're going to call this episode Little Boy Lost because even though that's like, a fifth of the page count or less, I think it's the story with the coolest name.
I also think it's the best story.
Young Justice Road Trip will get more views.
But we're hardcore. We ain't about the views. We're about the art. So we are reading today Young Justice Special, but depending on where you go, if you go to different wikis or different databases, I don't really know what this issue is supposed to be called. It could be Young Justice Special. It could be Young Justice in No Man's Land. Most likely, it's some strange discrepancy between the interpretation of the title and the indicia, the legal text. So depends on how anal you get. I'm going to call it Young Justice Special because it fits it in with
No Man's Land Volume 2 officially lists it as Young Justice No Man's Land number 1.
Well, I don't see. That's the one that I didn't see around the internet. And then we're going to be reading Batman Chronicles number 17. So this is kind of, and I don't think these aren't in the trays. These aren't placed directly in front of each other, right? Or
no,
are they?
No.
Yeah, you have to dig around for them.
Yep, there's some digging around. So Young Justice No Man's Land is the fifth story here. And then you have to go to all the way to page 221 for Chronicle 17.
Okay. Well, I don't remember precisely. We talked the last episode, I believe, to the point where I kind of think that DC, I don't know what decisions they made, but if you compare the order of their most recent trades, which are mostly complete, but you could argue that there should be different orders. And I went, again, for some of the stuff, I went off the common reading orders on the internet that people have, spent years nerding out over. And then some of it, I spliced together certain things for convenience. And so this episode, basically, it's kind of two little special issues and snapshots. Obviously, we've explained the premise for the Chronicles issues before. But we're going to start with Young Justice Special, and that's what we're doing.
Well, really what Vince just said is this episode is filler.
Yeah, but it's pretty fun, though.
No, but it's good filler. So Young Justice, No Man's Land number 1, or however you want to call it. The story is titled Road Trip, and this is by Chuck Dixon and Scott Beatty and Andy Kuhn. Now, I'm going to just start out by saying I was really kind of surprised at how well Chuck Dixon balanced and Scott Beatty balanced the characters here, because I didn't know that Peter David was gone by this point.
Well, he's not. So
okay.
The interesting part here is that it is a Batman creative team.
Right.
And that this is not Peter David, because this actually fits chronologically / publishing time. Young Justice is only like 10 issues in. That's a late 90s series. And it runs 55 issues, and every single one is Peter David, except there might be one fill-in or something like that. But I guess, I mean, it's similar to like the late 90s Teen Titans book by Dan Jurgens with all the no-names, which actually slightly, I'll force another connection with that in a bit. But
of course,
that Teen Titans book, they ran a poll because everyone was like kind of iffy on the series. They're like, what teenage hero do you want on this team? And they polled DC readers. And Tim Drake Robin, like, leaps and bounds, won the poll and the Batman editorial office were just like, no. So they couldn't use him, and so they ended up using, I believe, Captain Marvel Jr. But that story was slightly in my mind, where I'm like, why is Chuck Dixon writing this? But it works out overall.
Interested to see Eddie Berganza also credited as a young Jedi here.
That's really true.
That's really weird.
Among other things about Eddie Berganza that I'm not going to go into, and really I kind of feel already slimy for mentioning him in the show. But Andy Kuhn is on pencils here, and I like Andy Kuhn's art in this. This looks like Young Justice. But we open with Lagoon Boy swimming just outside of Gotham City. Right, to be exactly, somewhere east of Gotham as we open up here. And this is Lagoon Boy's first trip to Gotham City. It's not really stated why he wants to go to Gotham City, but he runs amok of some evil submarines that we later find out are Cobra submarines. So he goes and hides, and then he tries to hightail it into the city, where we cut back to the Young Justice headquarters at the Cave HQ. In the show, I know it's Mount Justice, but I forget what it's exactly called here. But still relatively the same thing, where Connor and Bart are trying to cheer up Tim, who's down in the dumps because he's kind of not been fired by Batman, but Batman's been telling all of his allies to stay away from Gotham as he's fixing the current No Man's Land problem. But Connor, being Connor, along with Bart, kind of spark him into, no, let's go to Gotham and see what we can help. Let's get you out of the dumps here.
Bart is absolutely delightful throughout this entire issue, but especially in this scene. I love him. Bart is so good.
Yep, this is like peak sidekicks that I love.
Yes.
There's a sequence where Bart tries to cheer up Tim by like throwing on different costumes, and it's really funny.
It's legitimately funny, which kind of surprises me.
Which I'm going to say,
good.
The gags are spaced out in the dialogue for like, you have to have that, because he's going so fast, you have to have that like pause.
Mm-hmm.
And that's done really, really well throughout the entire issue with Bart.
Bart is the standout character in this issue, I think.
So eventually they pull a loophole, and they end up going to Gotham City, and they also just straight up tell Red Tornado, hey, don't tell Batman we're coming. And then we cut to Robinson Park, where there's a bunch of gangs in Gotham City, where Lagoon Boy then finds his way into the city, and he's chased down by a Gotham City helicopter. It's U.S. Marshals to be exact, because they're still like flying around the perimeter of the city to make sure no one gets in. Also, like they once again bring up the mines that are still in the water that were placed around the city. Connor and Bart are flying in. Bart's running on the water, so passage of time has to have at least, we're past winter at this point, because the last time we looked at the rivers, they were frozen over. So
right.
Just headcanon on that. They do make mention of the mines, though. But they do get into the city, and they're like, wow, this place is totally fucked. How can we help? So they end up going into Robinson Park, where they run amok of these two rival gangs that are fighting in there. And also they run into what they think is Poison Ivy, but we later find out it's just a kind of a construct created by Poison Ivy. And Connor immediately falls in love with her. And then Tim has to end up rescuing them, but they end up getting, as Tim makes his way into the city, he has a delightful exchange by running into Lagoon Boy, which Vince, you already posted this panel for us, but I love reading it, where Lagoon Boy is just like, hey, I look kind of weird compared to everybody's like, and Tim's just like, no, we have a giant human crocodile and a guy who's literally a bat and a giant killer Mothman. So no, in Gotham, you blend in fine, dude. So he tags along for the fun as well. And then they get into their fight. Tim ends up rescuing them, but in their counterattack, Bart just runs and smashes his face right into a tree, which is hilarious. And then Batman ends up coming and saving the day, where they think Batman's going to be mad at them, but no, he's kind of cool. and he just kind of has a stern talking to Tim, and he's like, "Listen, we'll talk about this later." We also see what I can only think of Clayface in the background, kind of looking on at them.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is set up for later, but on their way out of the city, Lagoon Boy tells them, "Hey, I ran into these Cobra subs on the way there," and they go and smash up the Cobra subs and prevent that disaster. And that's the issue. They also run into Lagoon Boy's like whale buddy, which is hilarious.
He's awesome. He's a giant robot whale with arms.
And I believe his name is Blubber.
He's so cool.
And then we end with Bart thinking that Batman was Tim's father. And we all have a laugh about that. But the funny thing is, Bruce Wayne would go on to become Tim would go on to become Bruce's son because he adopts him after Identity Crisis when Tim's father's killed. So hindsight for moving forward on that is just something to note. But I thought this was a delightful issue. It's a much deviated break from like kind of the cold, dark, serious plays that we're getting in No Man's Land, where we get some lighthearted fun with the sidekicks and the Young Justice team. Really fun, energetic art, and not having this written by Peter David. I'm going to mention again, Beatty and Dixon do a very, very good job handling the teenage heroes. But when I thought about it, it's not truly outside the realm of Dixon to have success here, as he was writing Tim's ongoing series. So it's not like he didn't have experience with teenage characters writing them. But I do think everyone was balanced and very well and in character. But I'll open the floor. This was terrific.
Yeah, so Matt said that for him, Impulse was the standout character. For me, I really, really enjoyed Lagoon Boy.
Lagoon Boy was cool.
Yeah, mostly because like I'm more familiar with the others. So Lagoon Boy was created by Eric Larson and Eric Battle for their Aquaman run, just not too long before this issue. And this is obviously, as you can tell from his interactions with Tim, this is his first time meeting these characters. And then he kind of just like keeps appearing randomly in some Aquaman stuff and in some Young Justice stuff. He never fully actually joins Young Justice in the comic books, to my knowledge. And obviously, lots of people may know him from the Young Justice TV show, where he is more of a formal member.
Well, he was really annoying in that show, but I liked him in this issue.
Yeah. Also, know him from Heroes in Crisis for dying.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Shout out to Tom King.
Tom King killed him?
Well, yes.
Well, yes, but he was on a list of characters that DDO was like, yeah, you can kill these guys.
Well, we don't know anything about that. But Lagoon Boy, actually pre-New 52, the last major thing that actually happened was he actually did officially join a form of the Titans. It was like the Titans East spin-off team or whatever. And there was some battle with like Brother Blood or Trigon or whatever the hell, and he went into a coma. And then it's just like, a year later, before someone decided to go back to that, there was a reboot. And then he never once showed up in the New 52 timeline until Heroes in Crisis, where Tom King has him in the simulation in flashback, reliving the thing that put him in the coma over and over again. I don't remember exactly how much it matches up with the Flashpoint continuity, or if Tom King just kind of recontextualize it. And then he dies from, Wally West kills him, essentially. Manslaughter. But Lagoon Boy was brought back for the first time in like 9 years to be killed in flashback by Wally West.
Man, I hate that story.
But I think he's really...
I didn't even read it. Nope. I read the last issue, but still.
But he's really fun here. He's like naive, but not in a stupid way, and he's very enthusiastic. And then obviously when Blubber shows up, it's awesome. The third character, both of them reference Shiva, who's a mermaid character that we don't see here. And also, I think it's interesting to note that the entire time I'm like, hey, this is half of Young Justice. Where is the other half? And we do get one panel of the girls, which is Wonder Girl, Arrowette, and Secret just like hanging out. And it's just one quick panel. And the fact that they were given a panel, even if it's just a panel, I thought that was nice. Just to acknowledge, hey, yeah, there is, another half of the team. We also see Red Tornado really quickly. So this does really, I mean, it feels like it fits just as well with Young Justice as with all the Batman stuff.
Red Tornado is like their babysitter, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my first Young Justice issue. Like, I was a big fan of the show. I'm not really caught up in season 3, but yeah, it's definitely piqued my interest. I'm definitely gonna have to look into the main series. The thing about Peter David writing all 55 issues definitely sounds like it could be a plus. So yeah, definitely gonna have to look into that sometime. This is a fun issue.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of my takeaway. Also, I love Peter David. He's I don't know. Bleh. Wow, that was bad. I don't think that he's written anything terrible. Not that I've read, at least. And like, these are cool characters, and I loved Impulse. So I don't know. I'm gonna say I have to check out the book. I'm probably not going to. Realistically, I'm probably not going to. But like,
well, we should cover this by saying when we want Matt to read a DC book, it's mere Vince like getting doubles of that book or upgrading and then giving him an old one and going, here, read this.
That's the best way to do it. Yeah. If you hand me Young Justice, I'll definitely read it. Otherwise, like, maybe.
But thankfully, DC has been reprinting Young Justice at their own slow pace. I don't think that it seems that it's canceled, but
yet,
it might take a while because the series actually had like a few like mini events and lots of one shots and tie-ins, which set it up, and then early on to the run, there's this event called Secrets of Youth, or I think something of Youth, and then there were a bunch of one shots beforehand, similar to like Birds of Prey or something like that. So they're like 3 or 4 volumes in, and they're only on like issue 15 out of 55. So it's going to take a while. It's going to take several volumes.
Yeah.
But definitely recommend that series. And the stuff that is making them take a while, it's not like it's bad filler or anything like that. But really, like 90s DC, and really most of this stuff starts in the mid 90s. I think it really was like a like peak period for teenage superhero books, because DC, unlike Marvel, DC for most of their books, they never went like full edgy or full like image imitation. Because obviously the image guys came from Marvel, and Marvel, in the 80s was already setting up that kind of tone.
Yeah.
Even though it ultimately comes from DC with Dark Knight Returns and everything. But I think, you have a huge chunk of Impulse, Robin under Chuck Dixon, and Superboy under Carl Kiesel and Tom Grummett, and you have Young Justice, and there's some overlap between them, and some of them are after the others, but those 4 books, and then there's a few way smaller ones that you can point to, and slightly older characters that you could force into it, like the Ray or even Kyle Rayner and stuff like that. But those books, they were more hopeful and a little bit more wholesome in a way that could potentially come off as dorky. But, if you go in with the right attitude, they're amazing comic books. And it's a shame that DC seems to, they'll be like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to reprint stuff, and then it dies on the vine. That's what's happened with Impulse and Superboy, and possibly Robin. Whereas Young Justice is chugging along.
That's what I was going to ask about. That Impulse by Wade book was canceled, right?
They were going to do an omnibus of the whole Wade and Ramos run. Then they canceled that. Then they solicited a thick paperback of like the first half of their run or a third of their run, and then canceled that. Who the hell knows? We'll see until
they just canceled the Bronze Age Jonah Hex omnibus this week, and I'm still really upset about it.
Man, I was willing to deal with that Ramos art for Impulse. I was, but I guess DC doesn't want me to own it.
And Dixon's Robin hasn't had a volume in a while. Those books
They stopped at like volume 5.
Yeah, some of those are unclear because they never really. It's not like they solicited the next ones and canceled it. They just never got around to the next one.
Hey, at least Lossie's run on Nightwing's getting reprinted.
Yeah, and then Superboy they put out 1 volume, and then Hush. All right, so that's Young Justice. I think we all had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. You guys want to talk about the Batman Chronicles?
I'd love to talk about Batman Chronicles.
All right. Well, I'll kick things off because the first story in the Batman Chronicles, I'm on the wrong issue. Give me a second. Is about the Man-Bat's son, and it's called Baby Boy Lost. That's not what it's called. I forget what it's called.
Little Boy Lost.
It's called Little Boy Lost, and yeah, it's about Man-Bat's son. Basically, Man-Bat has a son, which I don't know if that's been established at some point. If not, it is now, and he is lost in Gotham, and he is scared, and he really hates Peaches, and everybody's trying to find him. His mom wants him. The Penguin shows up for a bit. He wants him. Kirk, his dad, is being depressed. We'll get to that in a minute. Batman wants him. So he's just running through the basically ruins of Gotham trying to survive. When his mom goes to the Penguin, it's like, hey, I'm trying to find my son. You're really good at finding missing things because you're, the Penguin. And at this point, he has, I think it's safe to say he has more power than he ever has before.
Yeah, he has a connection to the outside where he's been able to get supplies. And with Man-Bat's kid being able to track down and look at things in the dark, which he's doing with his wife, with Man-Bat's wife, he's become a valuable asset because he can go into small places and scavenge.
Exactly. So he wants her son, and she obviously wants her son back. So they're going to kind of sort of work together to find him. And then Batman goes and talks to Cobblepot, and he's like, "Hey, what did Kirk's wife want with you?" And Penguin says, "Go fuck yourself." And Batman breaks his nose.
Again.
His nose again. This is the second time he's broken his nose now.
Just in No Man's Land?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's why he still has the bandage on it.
Yeah, he still has the Band-Aid on from last time.
So he breaks his nose, and I guess the implication is that he tells him, right?
More or less.
Why he wants Baby Bat. And so he goes off to find him. Man-Bat's baby was into some trouble with this eye patch guy. I don't know who eye patch guy is. But
He's
eye
like
patch guy
wants the Penguin. That's what I got from him.
Okay. Yeah. So he wants to kill Baby Bat. Meanwhile, Batman goes and has a Spider-Man lizard scene with Kirk Langstrom. I've seen this exact almost panel for panel scene happen.
It's not with Kirk, it's with his wife.
Is that his wife?
Yeah, his wife turns into a Man-Bat.
Yeah, so Kirk's not in this issue.
Yeah, Kirk's not in this issue.
I legitimately thought that was Kirk. I just thought he had a 90s ponytail.
No.
Well, okay,
No,
then he has a Kirk Connors moment with Kirk's wife because this is just the lizard. And she turns herself into a woman bat, and then together with the woman bat, he and Batman go and save the baby. That's it.
Yeah. The implication also being here, though, that like they have she has a daughter named Jackie who she just left with the rest of with the survivors that they were hanging out with.
Well, I don't understand. So first of all, the daughter's name is Becky. It's Rebecca Langstrom. And the final panel is really weird because it seems like there are 3 bat heads. So I don't know if Rebecca is also a bat, even though she said she's not earlier. And I don't think she has ever.
She would have had to have been injected with the serum because Langstrom's wife says it's recessive in females.
but it's literally just like a floating head on the final panel, a third floating head.
It's bad.
It's really funny.
So I don't know if if Becky flew out of nowhere at the very last second for the family shot, or if she was hiding in Francine's shirt. But also she's older. I believe she's older than Aaron, so she should be larger rather than this.
Oh, I thought she was younger.
That part I didn't really understand. That panel.
Honestly, this whole story isn't very good, but I love Man Bat, and Baby Bat is adorable. So ultimately, I really enjoyed this, even though it's kind of nonsense.
I mean, this is a Scott Beatty story, and I think Scott Beatty is a perfectly fine Batman writer. We've seen better stuff from him, but I think if he would have had a full 22 pages with this, he could go a little bit more in depth than having it be in a smaller story like Chronicles. Pascal Alexi's art is fine. It's not terrible, but yeah, I think this is. I'd like to see these characters again, or at least check in with them. I kind of wish this. The things with Chronicles are we've seen stuff and then we'll probably never see it again. And I was familiar with the Bat Boy because I had the DK DK put out those essential guides for characters, and I had the Batman one, and the Bat Boy had a little write up in there, so I was familiar it existed, and I didn't know this was where it was from, but I want to see these characters again.
But I definitely want to see them again. They're great. I love Baby Bat. He's amazing.
So I believe he was born and was a bat in the mid-90s Man Bat miniseries. Well, I don't believe, I know that. And then he's here. So there's not a ton of appearances out there. And then as far as the Batman connection and everything, the other thing is that, Matt described it as Francine and Bruce going to find Aaron, but really it's Francine doing the work, and Batman's honestly kind of just there to try and stop her and be overly aggressive, despite her not really showing any bloodthirsty or problematic tendencies at all in this issue.
Yeah.
Right. And I get it that he's basing this, on a bunch of experience with Kirk, and obviously there's differences between post-crisis and everything, and I'm not super well read on Man Bat, but Kirk was basically towards the end of the Bronze Age, pre-crisis, again different continuity, but he was a straight up anti-hero and was in hundreds of solo stories.
Neil Adams would literally just draw him chilling in the back of the Batcave.
Yeah. And so for me, because writers, and this is not really what happens in this issue, but a lot of writers, they want to touch all the Batman villains, and Man Bat is a major Batman villain. So I guess he's just constantly getting the face heel revolving door. Whereas to me, it's he kind of should be an anti-hero.
Dark.
And Pascal Alexi's art, I think it was a little inconsistent. I think there's a few shots where Aaron looks pretty cute, and then there's other stuff where the end of the story, when you see he's not unmasked or anything, but you see the parts of Bruce that are not covered by the cowl, and his eyes, and some shit is going on with the art. It gets really strange on Bruce's chin and mouth and everything. But then we were talking about, do we get to see these characters again? The answer is no. No, as far as I can tell, not a single Man Bat related character shows up for the rest of No Man's Land, which seems kind of strange.
Well, this is the last episode I'm on then. Bye.
As a whole family,
next episode is literally Cassandra Cain.
The whole family, including Kirk, next appear in an arc around Robin's 75 through 77, which is actually, honestly, it may be during No Man's Land, but not tightly tied in enough. But I think it's after.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
Not for this story. I mean,
No, there's not much to say really. The baby bat's cute, and that's it.
Michael, any additions?
Yeah, not really. Like there's definitely some confusion in the end with how many man bats there were or whatever. But then there was another part that I thought was like from the second to last page to the last page, I couldn't really follow it. Where the goons find Batman and Francine, and they're like, "Run for your lives!" And then it's like, well, before that, Batman's confronting Francine, and he's like, "We've got too many monsters here." Then these guys run away from them. Then it's a black panel with some words, and then they're just suddenly on top of a building, and they're made up, and the bats are all flying away. Like, you guys remember the part I'm talking about?
Yeah,
It's something that
not a ton specifically, but I think this goes to Mike's point where some of the pacing was a little jagged. If there were more pages, if it was closer to a full length story, which honestly, given Chronicles, this may have been very close to full length. I didn't double check the page count, but yeah, I think especially once, honestly, this story, I'm gonna be honest, I think this story would be better if Batman didn't remotely appear in it.
I agree.
He doesn't.
I mean,
He
it'd be.
didn't need to be in it.
I think it'd be more unique if it was, but I'm not. I don't think it detracts from him being there.
You get the scene with him and Penguin, but also again we've seen that scene, but like he doesn't ultimately contribute much. He just argues with Francine, effectively delaying her, and then like he doesn't even like really punch her, but he's like delays her, and then just tags along, and then has an edgy encounter before letting them get away.
Yep.
You could have done it without his involvement, and especially going to my note where they don't even show up again. So it's not even like this is setting up an edgy relationship or a good relationship and a status quo that we'll get back to later, because we don't. Like if they appear in a future arc and it referenced back to this, that would make sense. But yeah, some of the pacing, especially towards the end with the action, was jagged. And then just to drag this on longer, the scene where Graf like gets the info from his informants about the baby bat, I thought it was kind of hilarious. He like throws candy on the ground, and I guess it's actually like a somewhat like if you think too hard, it's actually like a fucked up like a peek into this no man's land psychology, because he like throws candy on the ground and the guy's like ooh, and then he slits his throat, and I'm like, that's like really weird and not fucked up.
Yeah,
but
it is.
The next story, it's called Turn On, Tune In, Freak Out. This is written by David Wynn, no idea how to pronounce that, and drawn by Eduardo Barreto. Barreto, major dude, through some New Teen Titans and tons of other stuff. I think we may have even talked about him before already. Wynn, I don't know who this guy is. He has very limited comic book credits. It's basically this, and he has some kind of co-writing credit on the Wildcats trilogy miniseries by Jay Lee. That's literally it. So I don't know. He must be some kind of like Hollywood guy or something like that. The story here, our main character is Jenkins Yates, who worked for a TV studio, and he's just kept broadcasting. I'm not sure who he expects to be picking up the signal, but Oracle and Batman, at Batman's direction, Oracle does some hacking, blasts it out to everyone in the country, because Batman wants everyone to, not forget Gotham and see what it's like. And his show is a mix. It starts out with like crazy sock puppets, and you think he's like this ridiculous, insane guy trapped in a TV studio, but then he has somehow, they really quickly say the words roaming camera and don't explain it. Somehow he has man on the street interviews with people across Gotham, and I don't know if those are pre-recorded or if he has like some fucking drone technology. But it's actually like that half of the show was pretty interesting. And then the entire time there's a mob outside of the studio trying to get in. I don't know why. They never really get into their motivation. I don't know if they just want to beat him up, or if he has a stash of certain things, or if they think they'll have some kind of power or leverage if they take over the studio. But Batman saves him from the mob and leaves a batarang at the scene so that the camera can zoom in on it. And then the guy's outro song for his show is literally like word for word Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba. And it took me like the third line to figure that out.
I got it from the first, and I was like, they're not going to do more, and then they did.
Yeah, I thought it was like I thought it was going to be a one-line stupid reference, and then they just literally go verbatim like the chorus of that song.
Now,
This
which
whole
I have
story
a
is
question,
stupid.
gentlemen.
Terrible.
Compared to our last deep dive 90s chronological comic book event podcast, this, I believe, is the first major hit song that we come across, while in the Clone Saga, it was just straight up reference after reference to Hootie and the Blowfish.
It's so weird the number of times Hootie and the Blowfish showed up. They were never that big, were they? Whatever.
They were that big. For a
they
little bit, they were that big.
Yeah, they were huge.
That's so stupid.
And
I'm
I would
going to say, which now I have to ask, because three of us are here, Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba or Hootie and the Blowfish?
Tub Thumping. I love that song.
No, it's
No.
Tub
I'm going to
Thumping's still
say
good.
Hootie and the Blowfish.
No.
Hootie's a lot better.
Tub Thumping is a classic. That song is gold.
Have you ever listened to that song not inebriated?
Yes.
Okay.
Unironic.
What do you guys think about this?
No.
I must be the only one here who's never heard either.
You have heard Tub Thumping.
Yeah, that's not true. You've
Okay, bro.
Well, either way, you've got some homework to do. But what did you guys think? What did you guys think about this story? I kind of liked it.
I literally have no opinion on it. I think it's just dumb
I'm
and boring.
See here, I'm almost there with
Well, that's
Matt.
an opinion.
Like, it does nothing to signal itself away. It happened, and then it was over. And I thought it was an interesting concept where you have this guy who has a closed circuit television that major networks are trying to get to broadcast to the people, the rest of the world, to see how bad Gotham is. And then it just didn't really go anywhere.
No.
And I kept waiting for it to have some sort of meaning or a moment to happen that was big, and then nothing happened. And I was like, what was the point?
Right, exactly. Nothing happened. It was an interesting concept, but this guy that was trapped in the studio or whatever is super annoying, and his sock puppets are really obnoxious, and I did not like it at all.
Well, it comes to the fact that, like, with the sock puppet thing, I'm going to bring up Mr. Rogers real quick. And I was like, whenever anyone's tried to do a parody of Mr. Rogers, it's never really worked.
Never.
So don't try it. Like,
Yep, I completely agree.
You guys all...
too pure for parody. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Did everyone else cut out for a second, or was that just on my screen?
Maybe just you.
It's just you.
Okay. It's probably fine then.
I mean, this is really the kind of story that I would expect more from Chronicles, which I didn't think it was bad, but it's just a quick snapshot, an angle that you wouldn't devote a full arc or even necessarily a full issue to along the way. And so for that purpose, I thought it was an interesting, quick concept to get on the table.
Sure, I guess. I just don't think it's
Interesting
executed
concept,
well.
bad execution, and that's where I'm going to stand on it.
Yep, I agree.
All right, Michael, bring us on home.
Yeah, let's get your insight.
Okay, now we have a story called Identity Crisis. No, not that Identity Crisis. That doesn't come for a few years.
Good one.
This is written by Chris Renaud and drawn by Graham Nolan and Bill Sienkiewicz. Oh, I almost forgot that actually. So Sienkiewicz, is he inks on this, and then Nolan is pencils, or is
I'm not.
Sienkiewicz is doing finishes.
I don't know
Oh.
because I don't know how it splits down because there are flashback sequences which seem exponentially more Sienkiewicz-y. So
Mhm.
Oh,
if he's
yeah.
doing the flashback sequences, I'm not sure if he's inking Nolan throughout.
I mean, I'm almost sure he's inking throughout because there's not an inker listed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that could imply that they're both inking themselves.
Yeah, I mean, when you see Sienkiewicz, I'm like 90% sure he's inking it. But you are right. I digress though.
Okay, so we start out right in the middle of the action. Batman and Killer Croc are in the middle of a fight. It's a splash page. They're falling off a building, gripping each other, and Killer Croc is still working out a full sentence while they're tumbling off this building. He's like, "Rawr, I'm gonna break your neck, Bat." And yeah, I just thought that was like oddly verbose for Crocodile Man as he tumbles off a building. But
It's a really cool image, and I like it a lot.
it is, yeah.
A good way to begin a story.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, it was a really good shot, good spread, I thought. So yeah, then they hit the ground, and Batman's like, "Hey, not this time." And Batman notices someone behind him. Killer Croc hops up just quick enough to pull his mask off for a split second. Then Batman knocks him back down, knocks him out. Oh no, he doesn't knock him out. He just runs away. and actually, his mask is off longer than a split second. It seems to be a few seconds. They puts it back on. It's just long enough for this older fellow with glasses lurking in the shadows to see that he's Bruce Wayne. This guy's just discovered Batman's identity because Killer Croc popped his mask off for a second. And we see through flashbacks he's a psychologist called Dr. Kreider who met Bruce Wayne at least one charity event. And he's talking about how he's a doctor at Arkham, and he actually thinks he might be able to help out some of the villains in there, specifically Two-Face. But he seems probably more motivated by getting fame for himself and by cracking the Two-Face case than he is in actually helping Harvey and his potential victims and whatever. So then, meanwhile, in the present, he's like, "Oh, so I've somehow managed to survive no man's land, even though I have no real skills or anything that's useful here. But now I know Batman's identity. Now I've got a bargaining chip. I'm gonna go talk to Harvey. We had a relationship, right? We're kind of friends." But Harvey Two-Face is not happy to see him because he tried to cure him and whatever, and he just wants to keep being Two-Face. And and he also put him in solitary. That's really pissed him off. But so then the doctor tells him, "I have Batman's identity," and then Two-Face just like, "So friggin' what? There's no civilization here. It doesn't really matter who he is anymore. It's no man's land. It's an post-apocalypse scenario. Yeah, I'm just gonna flip my coin. Bad side lands up. He shoots him and he falls out a window. Double overkill. But even though he's lying on the sidewalk with his neck broken and blood everywhere, he still manages to say Bruce Wayne is Batman once out loud before dying, but nobody hears him. And Two-Face is like, "Yeah, give him a proper burial by throwing him in the dump." And Batman finds the body, and he's like, "Oh, I recognize that guy. Wonder what he wanted with Two-Face." And then the final line to cap this off is, "Whatever business the doctor had with Harvey clearly didn't go as planned. Deal with the devil rarely does." And like a line like that at the end of a Batman story, I kind of always hear like Shirley Walker notes from the end of like a BTAS episode where it would be like a sad ending for a villain character or something. It would be like doo, 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 doo. But yeah, just so yeah, uh this was I thought this is a pretty good story. I thought pretty it was definitely kind of interesting that like the three stories in this issue, the first two were kind of like relatively wholesome and positive by the end. Like the first one's like about an adorable bat baby and he ends up being safe in the end. The second one's like this guy showing that there's heroes in Gotham or whatever. And this one's just kind of grim and dark, and it's the end of the story. It's the end of the issue, but yeah, No Man's Land is a pretty dark scenario overall. So yeah, it's pretty obvious the guy was gonna die because he found out Batman's identity, can't keep him around too long. Uh, I feel like it could have been really contrived, like Two-Face not wanting to know his identity, but I think it mostly worked. Like, there really isn't much of a reason for him to want to know his identity right now. He doesn't even know this guy's telling the truth. So, and he like had a thing. He had a bit of a vendetta against the guy anyway. So whatever, just kill him. But yeah, I mean, not a lot really happened though. Now that thinking about it, like I feel like he could have maybe done a little more with this concept or gone into this guy's motivations a little more, but it's just a third of the issue, really. There's not much time for a lot to happen, but yeah, I thought there was some good art, especially that opening splash page and all that. But and I always like seeing more Two-Face. He's a great character. Yeah, what'd you guys think of this one? Anything to add or?
Okay, so I thought the bit with Killer Croc in the beginning was super cool. That was a fun little fight. And then after that, I stopped caring. I don't care about the old guy. Two-Face doesn't do anything in the story except kill him and get rid of him. So, like, I don't care. The bit with Two-Face not caring who Batman is was a neat little moment. I think that is really, like, indicative of where, where supervillains are at, is that their sort of attitude with, the state Gotham's in. And that was a neat little line, a neat little moment, but for the most part, the story is uninteresting and forgettable. I think the most I don't know, the coolest part of this issue is not the issue, this story, it's not the story at all, but rather like the tonal arc this entire episode has gone on, where like Young Justice was really light and fun, and then as we read on, it gradually got darker until it ends here, and we're back in No Man's Land. That's kind of cool, but that's not something we can say about this story. The story on itself, on its own, has one cool splash page, and that's it.
Well, I'll say this: with the last two stories essentially being about Two-Face that we've covered on the show, we know Two-Face is ruthless, and we've seen him do more ruthless things, especially how he left it off at the last episode where he went into Batman territory and slaughtered a bunch of people and rigged them up to send a warning. Like, that was a lot scarier and more impactful than just showing them, okay, this guy's going to kill him. And like, I kind of knew from the beginning that, all right, this guy's going to get the coin flip and he's going to die. So it's like a very baseline Two-Face story. And I was like, well, you're going to use Two-Face, do something that I haven't seen with him. Or if you're going to do something I've seen and you want to play to the hits, don't do it here, because we just, like, we get it. He's kind of crazy and unhinged more than ever, at least the way they're showcasing him right now. I do say that, like, him not caring who Batman is makes total sense with where we're at in No Man's Land, because who gives a shit who Batman is? He's at the end of the day right now, Batman's another person who has territory that I want.
Right. His identity doesn't matter. Nobody's identity matters. Society doesn't exist anymore. Who cares?
Yeah. Though that does bring up a question, though, of where's Bruce Wayne during No Man's Land?
There's no use for him.
Well, he still has to maintain a public identity.
Yeah, what did the public think happened to Bruce Wayne?
That's something I thought about when I was reading this. I was like, wait a minute. We had Bruce go to Washington and plead for Gotham to get funding. It got shut down, and Bruce has kind of been in hiding ever since. Bruce is internationally known as a businessman and playboy. Like, it's not unlike people in the national spotlight to go and hide from the spotlight for a while, but No Man's Land is at least like 2 years. Like, so
yeah, it'd be a much more believable cover if he hadn't gone to Washington. Like, if he had been in the city when it got quarantined, like, oh yeah, Bruce Wayne just hunkered down in some bunker and.
But then again, like, it's almost smarter not to address it, because like the way they addressed Superman, where was Clark Kent during Death of Superman? He was just buried under like the Daily Planet, was what they explained, and he survived somehow, and that makes no goddamn sense.
Right.
Eating rats or something.
Well, I don't know. I think they tried to explain it that he was buried under rubble or / like was on an out of country trip and didn't tell anyone. But that's a podcast for another time. The story I thought the art was better and more interesting than the story itself. Sienkiewicz and Graham Nolan is a very cool team that I'd like to see more of again. A lot of expressive cape movements with this art team that I really, really like to see. And that's kind of, I'm going to go and do a little bit of a gripe here. I don't think artists play around with Batman's cape visually as much anymore. People need to go back and look at guys like Graham Nolan and Brayfogle. You can have fun with the cape and not just have it be the standard bat shape.
Or dare say Todd McFarlane.
I mean, I'm not going to stand here and say Todd's art in Batman Year 2 isn't fantastic. It is. Even if you look at the covers he did for Batman and Detective, get expressive with the cape. You can get really, really fun with it.
Todd knows how to draw cool capes. That's for sure.
Listen, that's 90% of what reason why Spawn looks cool.
Yeah.
And then the chains and the shoelaces in his face.
Well, where did he? Well, Vince, since you brought Big Spawn in, where did he get the shoelaces from? What book?
Spider-Man.
I don't know.
Youngblood. He gets a batarang to the face, and it cuts his face open.
Yeah, so I don't have that much to add. I just think it's funny to note that when I kind of described the issues for this episode, I noted Killer Croc, and then it's like, no, it's just set up on like 2 pages. It's just a funny goof on my side, and I thought this was fine with Two-Face. It doesn't. Again, this is a Chronicles story, so it's not going to blow. This is basically what I expect.
Yeah, but like I still want it to be worth reading, even if it's not going to blow my mind. This is a waste of time. This is just boring.
I mean, you could skip it.
It was a much more boring issue of Chronicles than we've had, but it's not the worst issue of Chronicles we've had.
You could skip it, but I don't think it's bad. And it was nice to see Nolan, because I believe I noted several episodes ago that No Man's Land actually picks up basically right as his detective run ends. Yeah. So this may be the last of him that we see. If not, we'll be seeing him. It would be nice to see him one more time in one of these like ancillary spots.
Have we seen Croc at all so far, or this is the first time I've seen it?
I think we maybe saw him once or twice quickly before.
Well, no, I think we saw him in one of the.
At this point, is he a dude with a skin condition, or is he a monster?
He doesn't. All right, this is a quick thing for you. He's always had a skin condition.
He was never a monster?
In Hush, they played around with it where he was mutating, and then like he got a cure by the end, like normal Killer Croc. So, but it's always been
a monster in Arkham Asylum, though, right?
No, I mean he's just. I mean he's big.
Yeah, but the arc.
He's big and bulky, but it's always been a skin condition. A mutating skin condition.
Yeah, it's just artistic interpretation. I mean, different artists will do. I feel like in more recent times with like the Suicide Squad connections, I feel like they draw him more Crocodile-esque.
Yeah.
And play up that stuff. And I wouldn't look to video games for accurate portrayals of comic book characters either.
I mean, I wouldn't look for a Suicide Squad film either, but here we are.
Yeah.
That's just
because his makeup. Remember,
that's my primary experience with Killer Croc, so I didn't know it was not accurate.
My one thing with Croc, is that I never want him drawn with like a crocodile/gator snout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he should have a human-esque face and head, which is funny because they took the opposite approach when they brought Lizard to the screen for some stupid reason.
Yeah.
That looked bad.
But that's Batman Chronicles number 17. That's everything we were talking about on the show today.
At the very least, I got through my lucky number of Chronicle issues.
Thanks for watching this episode and tune in next time.
Yeah, do it.
Do it. Cassandra Cain's coming.